DEA had investigated, dozens of murders in the past. This one was different.
I don't think I've driven on 101 for years and years.
Me and Lori were really close growing up.
We actually knew this victim.
It was the most brutal homicide scene that I had ever worked.
This murder was particularly heinous.
Miss Pazinski was murdered in just an awful way.
This was a brutal murder, and
this was up close and personal.
Whoever's had the case, I've talked with them every single year.
People's on the phone with us wanting to know, what was going on.
What are we doing? How's it going? Do we have any new leads?
Wanting to know if we had any more information.
I miss her a lot, Even though it's been 20-something years, she was murdered on August 8th, and her birthday is August 10th. So every year it's always been, it's really tough.
Our officers back in 2002 went to her home, Loretta's home, and they felt there was a need to make entry into the home. They did, and what was terrible was her other child was inside the home, toddler, wandering around. Loretta had been brutally murdered.
He goes, she's dead. Oh man, my heart hit the ground. I was, in shock, instant shock at that time. I just feel like I've been walking around out here alone for the last 20-something years, it's like a part of me that's gone.
I spoke with several family members today, and they told me that even 10 years later, they still get chills knowing that Lori was brutally murdered here at the Heather Circle Apartments. All they want now is closure.
My name is Joe Pazinski. I am Loretta Pazinski's oldest brother.
Lori was the closest age to me. So she was like my best friend.
She was very outgoing.
To describe Lori is like trying to describe the Tasmanian devil. She's all over the place, but she had a good heart. She was a very loving, caring person.
She worked full-time at Denny's on Veranda. She worked full-time at KFC down the road from there too. And she was always more concerned about helping other customers or helping a friend or a family member, looking out for them. She was always looking at the big picture about what she can do to help other people rather than help herself.
Lori always loved the outdoors, and she loved the beach. She was a water baby. So we always went to the beach in Marina that was right down the street from the roller skating rink. Well, when we were growing up, she was always the small child that was like, okay, well, she always did for everybody else.
We played all the time, and we were just like two peas in a pod.
We had chores to do, and every weekend, Mom would tell us, okay, if you guys don't get your chores done, we're not going to the beach on a Saturday, because Mom would take us to the beach on a Saturday in Monterey.
On her birthday, we'd always go to, when I got my driver's license, we would sneak out and we'd drive down 101, we'd go to Chuck E. Cheese, we'd just go out to some fields and fly some airplanes or, do something. She had a good heart. She was a very loving, caring person. She was a good mom. She's strict. That's how we were raised by our father, strict. But she was a very strict mom, but she's very, very, more so than strict, she was very loving. And she's very compassionate.
Loretta had worked as a waitress at a restaurant in North Salinas that many officers would go to for a coffee break, and I had gone there myself, so we actually knew this victim.
She was known to everybody to always be a very hard worker, a very nice person, very giving.
She was always very pleasant, and again, when we learned that she was the victim of this crime, it's different when it's someone you know.
We had completed our day of work and everybody had gone home, and Jerry and I were on call for the week. I believe I was home maybe 30, 45 minutes, and the phone rang, and we were informed that there was a homicide that we were going to be called in to investigate. My name is Richard Serratos, and at the time of the murder of Loretta Pazinski, I was one of the detectives assigned to investigate the murder along with Jerry Davis.
We went to the scene, and what we found, she lived in an apartment. And when we went inside, we found that she, had been killed. My name is Jerry Davis, and I worked for the Salinas Police Department as a detective in General Crimes Division. And I was one of the lead investigators, along with my partner, Rick Serratos, in the investigation on the case of Loretta.
This investigation began as a missing person report. We had a woman call and say that Loretta had not dropped the children off as she normally would. John Murray, acting chief of police, Salinas Police Department. Back in 2002, when this murder took place, I was a young officer with about 6 years on here at the Salinas Police Department, and I was working in the gang unit at the time. I responded to the scene. When
we went inside, we found that she, had been killed brutally, stabbed multiple times, and her throat had been slashed also. And she was laying on the floor in the bedroom.
That was a violent time, and this was different than other homicides I had responded to.
And we go inside. As we approach the door, we start observing blood on the doorknob and blood on the floor. And we just walked through the whole apartment, and the last place we went was where the victim, Ms. Pazinski, was at.
And she was laying on the floor in the bedroom. Her car was gone.
Ms. Pazinski was murdered in just an awful way.
And that was hell, hell. And whenever we went through 2 divorces, and that affected me in a lot of different ways.
At first, I really didn't want to be bothered with it. I didn't really want to talk about it. Because it takes a lot on your mind, and it takes a lot on your heart.
I was, in shock, instant shock at that time. And so I got in my car. It just seemed like just a daze, because as much as you can hear it, but you don't really process it that fast, because. And so I'm headed over to the apartment complex where she was living. And just to let you know, our father died in the Skyline. He died right across the street, and then Lori died in the apartments right across the street. So it was just. I was just trying to go in there and get her goldfish, whatever she had in there, and I think it was Maldonado or Dana. One of the detectives, they said, you don't want to go in there, man. Just don't. And so I listened, And
being in the military and stuff, I've seen a lot as well, but it's a whole different aspect, when it's your family member.
When I learned the victim was Loretta, she was a waitress at Denny's in North Salinas, where many officers would go for a coffee break, and I used to go there myself as well. So it was a little different that many of us at least knew who she was.
Immediately, Jerry and I started directing our CSIs on what we wanted collected, photos of everything, and we start trying to piece things together based on where the majority of the blood was, blood on the walls, in the bathroom, in the kitchen, and try and figure out, how all this came about, and then we went from there.
We knew that she had a child, and we knew that they had a child together. So, one of the main concerns was, where were those children?
Loretta had been brutally murdered, and the child was there in the home. Loretta had been brutally murdered, and the child was there in the home.
What we later learned was that, so this was probably about 2 o'clock in the morning, according to witnesses. They heard arguing coming from the apartment around that time. After he had killed her, he left the 3-year-old in the apartment with his deceased mother.
What kind of person would do something like this?
Someone who's evil, just pure evil. Nobody should ever suffer what Loretta Pazinski suffered.
Investigators quickly identifying their suspect, Loretta's ex-boyfriend and father of one of her children, Juan Nunez. Police say there had been a lengthy history of documented domestic violence between Loretta and Nunez.
Both got the call a little after midnight on August 9th, 2002. After he had killed her, he left the 3-year-old in the apartment with his deceased mother. And then he took the baby over to his mom's house, dropped him off, cleaned up, and then took her car, and he, what we later learned, fled to Southern California.
It was a very tough scene to go into. I think probably the only other more difficult scenes are when they involve children. But in seeing this type of a scene, yeah, you can get emotional. But you don't have time to be emotional. You have a job to do. But that emotion a lot of times turns to anger. And it motivates you to really want to go and get the person that did this evil deed.
During the course of the investigation, we learned that the baby, which Loretta had with the suspect, had been taken to his mother's house and dropped off. We didn't know where the 3-year-old was at that time until much later. We had detectives go over to his mother's house and actually take custody of the baby. A family member of the suspect, Juan Nunez, the family member went over to the apartment just to check, because when he dropped the baby off, he admitted that he had killed her. And so they went over probably about 6 o'clock or so that evening.
Once he left his parents' house, one of the sisters called the other sister and told her what happened, and she didn't believe it. So a couple hours go by, she leaves work and goes over to Loretta's apartment and knocks on the door. The young toddler who was left behind with his mom opened the door. And she talks to the little boy, "Where's your mom?" She goes into the apartment, sees Loretta, grabs the kid, grabs some clothes, and leaves. Closes the door and leaves. Doesn't call us. Just leaves with the child. She takes the child, she goes with her boyfriend and tells him what's going on. They said, "We gotta do something with the little boy." So they take him to El Dorado Park, and they leave him out there. They'll say, "We'll just leave him here and play in the park. Somebody will find him," because his babysitter lived about a half a block away. So they did. They left him there playing in the sand. And fortunately for that little boy, the boyfriend had enough compassion, I guess you could say, to say, "No, we can't just leave him there. We have to do something." So they went and got him, and one sister said, "Well, I can't take him to the sitter because she knows me." And so the boyfriend took him to the door and told the babysitter that the little boy was in the park playing, and he said he lived there. And the sitter said, "He doesn't live here, but I'm his babysitter, I'll take him."
So around 10 o'clock that night, nobody came to pick the 3-year-old up from daycare. The operator went over to the apartment, knocked on the door, and nobody answered. And then they sat in the parking lot for a while, the apartment complex, wait for them to come home. Nobody came home, the car was gone. So ultimately, she went up to the next door neighbor's apartment and asked if anybody had seen or heard anything. from Loretta. Nobody had. They said they had heard some arguing earlier in the evening or that morning.
And from that point, she went and she started trying to reach out to Loretta. She wasn't answering her phone. She called work. She wasn't at work. They said she hadn't seen her. She didn't show up. And so she drove over to the apartment and saw Loretta's car was gone. So she was very confused at that point, saying, well, her car's gone, but she's not at work and she's not answering her phone. Where could she be? She got worried, called the police. So our patrol officers showed up to do a welfare check, and that's when they went in and found Loretta.
Investigation quickly led to Nunez.
So he probably had a good 12-hour lead on us, at least.
And our officers and detectives were pursuing Mr. Nunez, and that led to family members and to the Los Angeles area.
The family wasn't all that forthcoming. In fact, obviously, when he showed up there and he had blood all over his clothes and his hands, he told them, I did it, she's finally gone, and he was just, bouncing around all over the place, kind of acting crazy. And the family, he had woken them up, obviously, early in the morning hours, and he changed clothes. He took a shower, changed clothes, and threw his bloody clothes out in the dumpster, and told him he was leaving. And nobody in the family called us. They didn't try to keep him there. That was it.
My concern was, him being loose, how many other people did he hurt? How many other children did he hurt? He did a lot of damage. I think he put Lori in the hospital quite a few times, before he murdered her.
The mom, she basically was playing it off. Yeah, he came here, and yeah, he did this, and yeah, he did that, but I don't know where he is. I don't know where he's going. Typically, when certain violent crimes happen in our city, the suspects flee to Mexico. That's almost a given. So we knew we were in a very tight situation for time to get him beforehand.
During the investigation, my partner and I basically followed him into Southern California, served multiple search warrants on family residences in the Anaheim and Cypress area.
We wanted this guy so bad. We worked through the night. We had to write a couple of search warrants at night, and then we had to drive down to Orange County to where he had family in Cypress and in Anaheim. And we had to wait till 6 in the morning to execute those search warrants. We didn't know if he was going to still be there, if he had gone there, but that was our goal, our plan. And while we were on our way down there, we got word that, I believe it was in Cypress, they recovered her vehicle, parked behind a little strip mall in a parking lot. So we knew for a fact that he was there, that he had at least gone there. Whether or not the family was going to help him, we didn't know until the morning of executing the search warrants and questioning all the family members.
And we learned that, the family didn't know what had happened, but they had given him some money and driven him to a bus station in Los Angeles. And he got on the bus there, and he went into Mexico from San Diego.
He made good his escape to Mexico. We had initial information about where he was at in Mexico. However, the international element created some roadblocks, and soon that information went stale.
Personally, a lot of people have always talked about, you hear a cold case on TV, you see these shows, they go cold and never get solved.
Extraditing people from Mexico is pretty arduous. First of all, a lot of people flee to Mexico.
We knew we couldn't go get him, but that's not how I felt. I had even discussed with Jerry that I was willing to go across the border and go get him. I probably would have put my career on the line or lost my career, but that's how motivated we were to get this guy. We wanted him bad. We wanted justice for Loretta, for her children, for her family. And I knew that once he was over there it was going to be hell to get him back.
The investigation continued, however, information went stale. We stayed on this case. Again, it made a lasting impression on all of us, and I watched the detectives who were involved really exhaust every effort to catch the suspect. And over the years, like all our cold cases, we work these cases in the background. And oftentimes our victims don't know that we're continuing to work it exhaustively, but we do.
We knew once we had questioned all the families down in Orange County, because they're the ones that helped him. They drove him to Tijuana, and he took a flight from there. They gave him money to get an flight to Morelia. So we knew that he had crossed the border and he was gone. And a few days later, we sent information, a BOL, to the police in Morelia.
So this was a different style of case because, it involved multiple nations.
Then was a motorcycle officer, got that BOL and said, oh yes, he's here. Confirmed it by, we sent the picture of him and confirmed that he was there. So we knew where he was. We just could not go get him. Our only hope was that for whatever reason that he might come back and cross into the U.S. and they catch him.
This case passed from one detective to the other, probably 5 over the last 20 years, if not more. And each one recognized the brutality of this case and the events of that night.
Every time they would say he's going to trial, then I'd put it on Facebook, or I'd be excited about it, relief, and then they'd call me back like 20 minutes later saying, "Oh no, it's not going to happen." So they did it like 4 or 5 times, and I was just like, okay, well, just wait now, see, what happens here.
But I understand this has occurred. I understand it's a lengthy time, but you gotta have the confidence in the individuals working the case, and you gotta have the confidence in the departments working the case, and the detectives, the officers, probation department. I mean, lots and lots of agencies and stuff. As long as you know that you can have the assurance that they're working the case and they know that you are supporting them, and they know that you are respecting the work and the time and the man hours that they put in, it gives them more hope as well to know that we are back there to support them. So it gives them a little more, I guess you want to say, confidence in knowing that they are being supported in the amount of work that they do and the amount of time that they're putting in to try to make sure this thing doesn't go really, really cold.
I know when Commander Murray, who is now Chief Murray, came into the investigations division, he had called me and he said, "Hey, this is going to be my priority, this case. We're gonna get this guy."
They called me. They contacted me and said, "Hey, we got some new information." And if I was able to get to the phone, they call. If not, they'll leave a message with the individual and the name and say, "Call us back. We got some new info."
Thankfully, our current chief, John Murray, was the commander in charge of investigations, and he knew about the case. I think he was a pretty young patrol officer back then, but he was very familiar with it, and thank God that he had not only made sure that case didn't just go away, but figured out a way to maybe we could get him. And he made a phone call to Mr. Panetta and got the ball rolling.
In around 2018, 2019, after having worked here so many years, I promoted to the position of the investigations commander, the Detective Bureau commander. And there was a number of cases that I'd been familiar with over the years, and I had an opportunity now to refocus. In and around that time, we received fresh information about where the suspect was at in Mexico, so we acted on that information. Of course, there's an international element to this, and that was a factor we had to deal with. We reached out to some resources we had in the federal government and really got the ball moving. The Monterey County District Attorney's Office was an invaluable partner in this investigation. They worked hand in hand with us throughout all these years, and when we took a closer look again with that fresh information.
In this case, I really want to thank the Salinas Police Department for their efforts. They knew about this case, and they came to us recently and said, look, we've got to work on this extradition. And so we did. And what we had to do is essentially present a case that it's a summary. It's with declarations. There's proof that's required. In order for the Mexican government to agree to do this, you don't just give them police reports. They want sworn statements under oath. And if they review, and this has to clear our federal Department of Justice, if the Department of Justice approves, it goes to Mexico for their approval, and they'll say, okay, this person can be arrested. So in this case, there were some complications trying to do that, because a lot of the declarations that we would have needed to satisfy the Mexican authorities came from the defendant's family members. And although we knew what they said, we had them in police reports. In order to get those declarations, we would have had to have gone to them and presented declarations and have them swear to them under oath. Well, the problem is we would be afraid that they would tell the defendant about this. And we would be afraid that we might not be able to locate him anymore, that he might be on the run. And so while it was understood that he was in Mexico, we also had a pretty good idea of where he was. So we needed the DNA in order to make our extradition case. Without the confession, we needed the DNA. And so the extradition process was delayed by the need for DNA. We were able to get DNA and then go through, get declarations, prove the case without the confession to the Mexican authorities' satisfaction, and also before that, get it past the Department of Justice, who approved the extradition. Once the extradition was approved, once all that was done, it really did not take very long.
In the last couple of years, we were able to locate Nunez. We worked with the Mexican government, and the Mexican government took him into custody. The U.S. Marshals were part of that investigation, and he was extradited here to the United States.
It was a tear-jerking phone call that I got. I mean, it was just, I didn't have any words. I think I cried more on the phone than anybody saying, hey, congratulations, we got him, or whatever they were going to say. But I think I cried more on the phone once they told me we had him back in custody and we were back in California. I've been following this on the 8th of August every year. Every year, religiously, I've made phone call to the police department, and whoever's had the case, I've talked with them every single year. Just, where's it at? What are we doing? How's it going? Do we have any new leads? When this came about, they advised me that we got it. I said, you got him? They said, yeah, we got it. And I says, that's great. I says, okay. It was a lot to take in, because all these years that everything has gone by, it's always in the back of your head wondering, is he going to get caught?
I finally got a call one day. Chief Murray, I was commander. I'm not sure if he was chief yet, but he said, hey, just want to let you know we got him. And that's the thing I would like the family to know, is that we never forgot about Loretta.
Nothing more goes through my mind than knowing that it's over. I mean, it's that feeling of relief and just having the peace of mind now.
It took 20 years to, push through red tape to, finally bring this guy to custody.
I can't say that I wanted to celebrate, but it was a huge yes. Finally, we get our shot at this guy. So it was a relief, but it was more of a, all right, let's close this thing up now and get what he deserves.
Well, he pled guilty to second-degree murder, and he did that because he preferred not to go to trial and perhaps be convicted of first-degree murder. So he received a sentence of 18 years.
What I was advised, it was 18 years and 4 months to life.
Yeah, that's right.
That was the sentence. And I guess what he's going to be doing is he's going into the Department of Corrections basically with 2 strikes against him already. And I do recall that California is a 3-strike state.
And in this case, we know that there was an argument. We know that we had witnesses who heard an argument. The crime scene was discovered, many hours later. And so we got 2 things out of it. We avoided perhaps losing, perhaps the case hanging, and also we got a final judgment, which means that he's agreeing not to appeal, and this case is over.
I'm happy to see him be brought to justice. A lot of people work this investigation, both within the Salinas Police Department, the U.S. Marshal's Office, Monterey County District Attorney's Office, and a host of others. A lot of work went into this, but the part that really hits all of us is that we're finally able to bring a measure of justice to the victim and the families. We never stopped working the investigation. And as I mentioned, this investigation went from one detective to the other. Probably 5 or more investigated this case.
Because so many years had gone by and, her brother, Joe, periodically would call the police department seeing if there were any updates. That hurt that they had to endure will never go away, but at least they know that we never gave up, and I want them to know that.
What I'd like to say to the agencies that were involved with this, because I have a list of who they were. They were pretty extensive. What I would like to say to the local law enforcement, the Salinas PD, and all the agencies out there that were involved in the apprehension is to thank you very much. Thank you for the due diligence that you guys had and not giving up on the case or my sister.
They all worked really hard. They worked really hard on this case, and they're trying to solve Loretta's case. There was other murders happening in Salinas, and so I was just trying to do everything I could do. I sold T-shirts that helps support stopping domestic violence. But it was really rewarding to hear. My oldest daughter called me and she said, "I bet you have this is going to give you some relief now, huh, Dad?" And I said, "Yeah, this will be good." And then see on the news and the newspaper where they had him in the airport at San Francisco was just. It hit really hard.
Somebody that is capable of doing what he did to another human being, he's capable of anything. And, there's a good possibility that, there were other people hurt in that 20-year span.
We never stop working our cold cases. All of the homicides, some of which many years have gone by, we recognize that. We're always working them, we're always looking at them. And something I always say to the people in our community is, if you have information, even on a case that was 20 years ago, give us a call. A lot of times people dismiss that piece of information they have thinking we probably already have it, or if it's of no value. But the reality is, let us have that. Let us vet that information. It may be the one piece we need.
Being that something like this has occurred over 20 years, 23 years with this 3 years incarceration at the county jail, it can give people hope to say, listen, you know what, I understand this has occurred. I understand it's a lengthy time, but you gotta have the confidence in the individuals working the case, and you gotta have the confidence in the departments working the case to the public. If anybody has got issues like this or they have a problem like this, make sure that you contact your law enforcement, lean on them, and give them the support so that this way, something like this, it can be finalized, so to speak, and justice can be prevailed.
I do like to help people, and I spend most of my life now the last 20 years of helping others, either whether it's heal past trauma in their family, heal past trauma for themselves.
You know, people watch it on the news, they see it, they say, okay, you know, it happened again. But, you know, when your life is touched by this, there's nothing more important, and you want justice. And, you know, I'm just happy that we were able to at least give some measure of justice to the family in this case.
You know, possibly had they called about the disturbance and police showed up, who knows? You know, maybe she's still alive today, maybe not. Maybe they catch him. There's a lot of what ifs.
You know, 22 years later, we're glad that he's faced justice, and we wish the best for the family, and hope they know that we did everything we could to bring this to a conclusion sooner.
It was a relief. I mean, it was a big relief that, you know, my sister and everything has got some justice now. And not only my sister, but my mom and dad are up there with her. So it's like the whole family has got peace.
I mean, I'm even willing to take the ashes, and I was thinking about taking her ashes and spreading them someplace, you know, and just let her go, you know what I mean? Just because, I mean, her ashes, more than anything else I own, those ashes mean more to me, and I'm very protective of that. You can take everything else away from me, you know, but just don't mess with the little sister, you know. And I think she would like that.
She was always looking at the big picture about what she can do to help other people rather than help herself. And unfortunately, that went with her, but that was a good thing. It went with her to the grave, but I don't think she's going to change up there in heaven. I think she's still going to be looking out for other people before she does things for herself as well.
It happened, you know. She's gone, but how can I use this as a way to help others, you know, keep hope. You know, make the right decisions is not so much being violent and angry. And that's a tough one too, you know. I mean, I think that's one reason why the DA didn't want me in the courtroom, you know, because I probably would have, you know, did something stupid, but that's me.
You know, making sure that they knew we weren't going to let this go away, and I hope that there's at least some gratification for them that he doesn't get to be free anymore.
If you had one opportunity to say one thing to Juan, what would it be?
That's hard because I know what he did, and he doesn't deserve to see the light of day or take another breath. And that's probably what I'd say to him.
He was a real piece of work, man. You know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, part of me wants to forgive him so that I can heal and I can be better. And at the same time, you know, it's just I can't do it. It's not, it can't happen, man.
You know, who knows? He's going away for a long time. Maybe he doesn't even live as long as his sentence.
I would like to be able to talk to him face to face and say, you know who I am, but I had one question for you, and that's all I want to do is why? That's it. That's the only question I would have to ask to him is why? Why did you take my sister? And that's it.
If you could say anything to these children, I mean, that part of why we want to do this is to, obviously you would want to reunite with your family, right? Or no, at least let them know that they have an extended family out there.
That's a big thing. I would love to. That's a hard question to answer because at the incident, they were only 1 and 3. And it's been, including the 3 years he's been in the Monterey County Jail, it's been 23 years. So now they would be 24 and 26. I mean, they're young adults.
Yeah.
if I had an opportunity to see them or say something to them, the only thing that comes to mind would be, hey, I'm your Uncle Joe. And, you know, if you have any questions about anything about your mom, you know, let's get lunch or something and let's sit down and, you know, let's talk about your mom.
Your mother's murder has been tough on the family. It's been tough on all of us, and I can't imagine how it's been for you guys. And I really hope that whoever has custody of you, I'd love to see them again. I'd love to I don't want to change anything in their lives. I don't want to change anything about them. It'd be nice if they were Pazinski still, but I don't think they are. But it's not even about closure at this point. It's about moving forward, you know, and trying to pick up the pieces with what's been lost for 20 years, you know. It's been a long time, and there's still plenty of time left to go fishing and tinker around on cars, and you know, and who knows? I mean, I may be surprised if I do meet them. They may have a lot of traits that they don't even know why they do these things, you know. And I can tell them, you know, you're a goofball because your mom's a goofball, you know, or you're a good cook because, you know, Uncle Frankie's a good cook, you know.
As far as my niece and nephew are, I would like to say Uncle Joe is out here, and I would love for you guys to be able to reach out to me. If you have questions, I would be happy to answer them.
I hope they know that we understood what a grievous crime this was, how awful it was, and we continued to work it throughout the last 22 years. And again, we're happy that we can bring a measure of justice. We know it doesn't provide closure. I'm not sure that ever happens, but at least we know that he's in custody in the prison system.